Conference record has joined the conference.
Hello? Hello? Did someone join? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, this is John Duda calling from Reagan Law.
Yes. For
We had
the
for the Legal
the
Plans 101.
teleconference? Oh,
Correct.
101 is tomorrow.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, 101 is tomorrow. Today is a conference call on the ABA Commission on the Future of the Legal
Right.
Legal
I'm sorry.
Services.
Yep, my mistake.
Okay. You're welcome to stay.
Okay, is that starting right now?
In about 3 minutes, yes.
Okay, great. Do I need to do anything beforehand or?
Nope, just mute your line once you have no more questions for me.
Okay, great. I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay.
So I'll
Okay,
go ahead
great.
and mute.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Mhm.
Hello, Tori?
Yes.
Oh, this is John Watson. I thought I had my line muted, but I guess I don't. So I'll try it again here.
Yep,
Let's
we're just
start.
waiting for Nicole.
I'll try it again here.
Hello?
Hi, Tori. It's Nicolle and Emily and Ann.
Oh, okay. Good.
Tori, if Emily's going to talk for a minute, can you make sure you can hear her okay?
Hi, Tori. It's Emily. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Fantastic. We have about 10 people on the line as far as I can tell.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll wait another minute or two and see if we get any more, and then we'll get started.
Yep.
For those of you just joining us, we're going to wait just a little bit to make sure that we give plenty of time to get on. So just bear with us for a moment as we wait.
Are you taking roll?
Hi, John. No, we're not.
But we're glad to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Great.
I'm going to mute in a moment, but I thought I'd leave it on until you get going.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll just maybe give it just a couple more minutes and then we will start.
Hi, Tori.
Hey, John. How are you?
I am just fine, thank you. I keep getting notices of new connections for your various phone things.
Right.
I don't know how to describe them.
Well, one's a teleconference and one's a webinar. Today's the teleconference. Tomorrow is the webinar. So we're
that's
really
not what
excited.
I'm talking about.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. The various sites that you have, I get notices of. I'm trying to think of one right now, and I cannot.
Okay. Well, we'll talk after. Yeah, we'll talk after this call.
Okay.
Emily, do you want to get started?
Yeah, we'll definitely get started. Well, good afternoon and welcome to the kickoff of our new teleconference series. Thank you for joining us. My name is Emily DeCrice, and I'm from ROG, and I serve on the GLSA Membership Committee and Communications Subcommittee. I'm excited to introduce our new all-member benefit, our monthly teleconference calls with keynote speakers sharing the latest and greatest in the legal industry. So just to provide a bit of background information on how this series came to life, the GLSA Membership Committee collaborated and recognized the need for tangible benefit offerings for members as well as an enticing benefit to attract new membership. So in thinking of other successful associations committee members were a part of, a common theme kind of resonated throughout, and that was informative, relevant teleconference calls with presenters. So from this initial concept, our free monthly teleconference series was born. So before we kind of get started here and I introduce our speaker, we just have a few housekeeping items. If you could please mute your lines for the duration of our call here, we'd greatly appreciate it. And then you're going to hear some great information for the first 45 minutes of the call, and then we'll leave about 15 minutes for Q&A. And then after the Q&A is over, just please stay on the line. I'm going to just share kind of our next monthly calls and what those topics will be. So without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker, Nicolle Schippers. She's our GLSA president, and she will be talking on the futures of the legal profession. Nicolle is our corporate counsel at ROG, where she has served as counsel for over 7 years. In her role at ROG, in addition to her legal duties, Nicolle manages the regulatory compliance team and the provider relations management team. Nicolle also evaluates contracts and all attorney communications and processes to develop more user-friendly tools and resources, and continually looks for ways to expand the legal insurance industry. Prior to ROG, Nicolle worked as a corporate consultant for Nationwide, agribusiness, and also served 5 years in the Air Force as a judge advocate general, during which she held the roles of criminal prosecutor, family law attorney, claims and tax attorney, and defense counsel. Nicolle currently serves as chair of the Council of Committees of the Association of Corporate Counsel, or ACC, served as a chair of ACC Small Law Department Committee, and also served on the board and is currently a member of the Polk County Women Attorneys, as well as the Iowa Organization of Women Attorneys, and many other memberships as well. So welcome, Nicolle.
Thank you very much, Emily. So I appreciate, first of all, I wanted to have my thanks to GLSA and most importantly to the membership committee. It's really nice that they have come up with these monthly calls for all of us members so that we can get some good information and really see the benefit of the information and of GLSA. So thank you to you guys for organizing it. I really appreciate that, as well as GLSA, of course, the organization that's bringing us all together, and we appreciate all of you who are on the phone as members. You guys, we want to make sure we get you the information you want and need, and we also want to make sure that you get the benefits of being a GLSA member. So if you have any ideas of either topics for future monthly meetings or any other things, articles, et cetera, that you're interested in, any of us on the GLSA committees would be very interested, and you can get that information to Tori or to Ramon or any of us. We'd really appreciate, because this is for you. We want to make sure that you get the benefits out of your GLSA membership. So thank you for that. So today we're going to talk about the future of the delivery of the legal services. This is something that absolutely is happening. Change is happening. It's a very exciting time. Can be a little daunting, can maybe be a little, depending on where you sit with it. It can be confusing, it can be scary, or it can be very exciting. I do want to do a quick caveat, since I'm a lawyer, I guess. I want to make sure you understand that what I'm telling you today is information. I will interject some of my opinions in there. They're not necessarily the opinions of GLSA or of RROG. I also want to say to you that I am not advocating either way on these things that I'm telling you about, except you will hear me advocate for legal plans, of course. So I want to make sure we all understand that I'm giving you some information that I've actually collected throughout my time being involved, not only with GLSA, but focused on the Futures Commission. So with that, and I know that Emily said that feel free to ask questions at the end. I am absolutely okay, though, if you want to interrupt me. I'll pause every so often. If you want to interrupt me and you have a question that's real pertinent and relevant to what we're talking about at that time, I'm very okay with that. Or if you want to hold them to the end, that's fine, too. But I would say I'd love to have your questions. I'd love to have some dialogue on this because it is absolutely going to impact you and affect you. So let's start. Let's talk about what it is. So for those of you who may be aware, may not be aware, the American Bar Association, of which GLSA is a committee or association, it actually started in 2014 a commission on the future of the delivery of legal services. They identified several issues that they felt really needed to be addressed, and I will go through those issues in just a moment, but really needed to be addressed not only as an association over the legal field, but really more, in my mind, to really help consumers and the general public on seeing value in lawyers and the legal services that they can provide. So that's what it is. This commission's been going on for a year. I will talk more specifically about the commission in just a moment, but I wanted to first start with why. Why would we even have a big initiative by then President William Hubbard on trying to determine how we can deal with issues and make solutions for the future? And with that, I think it's really important to look at the history not only of the legal profession, but those industries and professions around us. And it becomes quite clear as you do some research and you look at this that many industries, many businesses, et cetera, have really come a long way from the past in embracing technology, embracing different business models, etc., to propel themselves in the future. And as I started to research that, the legal profession, because there are many quotes and books and studies out there. In fact, one quote that's interesting is that it appears, and this was actually said to the ABA Commission, it appears that the legal profession missed the Industrial Revolution, which was quite telling to me. So I kind of started looking and digging into the past and how much have we as lawyers and the legal profession, those who provide legal services, how much have we embraced change in the past? Several things that might be interesting to you. I am going to pause real quick. If you don't mind, if you guys would mute your lines really quickly, unless you have a question, that would be great, just so we don't hear background noise. So anyway, as we're going through the past, I thought you might be interested in to know, where we've come. And one of the things that I found interesting, that it was in the 1970s that video depositions were introduced. Now, why would I talk about that? I talk about it because they were very controversial when they were introduced, because there were fears that would cause grandstanding, trick questions that would be deemed to inspire anger and other forms of manipulation. So they were not at all welcome, and it took a while to get them completely ingrained into our system. And then we started in the late 1980s having some e-filing, again, not very well embraced, if we will, at that time, and now they've become commonplace, both of those. So for other examples, early 2000s is when deposition transcript software became essential. I actually was a trial attorney during that time and absolutely remember when we converted over from the stenographer to trying video depositions, and I personally felt it was scary because I had to review all of the transcripts to make sure that they were correct. It was very interesting. So other things that might be interesting to you. So it's taken that long, I should say, as I stopped. To 1960s, paralegals were first introduced, and now we have more than 200,000 paralegals. So later in our time frame, if you will, these things are being introduced. 1971, email system's been invented. I take that one because when I sat in a summit about the futures, we had a keynote speaker, and I'll talk about him later, named Richard Suskind, who is who actually spends time consulting on the future of the legal services, specifically said that he wrote a book, and I believe, I'm looking at it, in the 1980s, I want to say, and one of the things that he predicted was that the way attorneys and clients would communicate with each other would be completely different, and he predicted a certain tool would be used to communicate. And he actually said, whether he was joking or not, I'm wondering, he said that he was booed off stage. And that tool that he was talking about was email. And again, you can know, all of you, that we primarily communicate via email now. Other things, early 2000 unbundling of legal services, things that have happened just recently. 2013, we had limited licensed legal technicians allowed in Washington, and I will talk about those. They're just starting to practice in 1915. So again, I just wanted to give you a couple things that have happened in the past to show you that although I'm not saying we don't embrace change, it does seem that the legal profession might take a little bit longer than some. And let me tell you about the some. So to give you an idea of technology and things that you know, LinkedIn was launched in 2003, Google in 2004, Google Scholar made hundreds of millions of cases and research available in 2004. 2006, smartphones were assigned. In 2010, we started to have iPads. And now we're seeing an ABA legal technology survey that only within 3 years of introduction of iPads, more than 50% of attorneys adopted those. So I'm focusing on the past a little bit because I want you to see that although the legal profession has had change, the change increments in other industries has been quite a bit faster. And so that's one of the things that the commission looked at today. So where are we today? I'm going to give you some stats. In 2014, there were nearly 1.3 million licensed attorneys in the U.S., But the experts estimate that only 20% of the legal needs of low income and 40% of the legal needs of middle income people were met. 40% of middle income. We'll talk about that in a bit. That's quite scary as a lawyer and as a lawyer for legal plans, because obviously with GLSA, our whole goal is to make sure that people have access to lawyers and to legal services. And so the fact that there are so many people out there who are not getting their legal needs met. Just to give you an idea of more statistics of people who are using or not using attorneys, only 24% of people with a civil justice problem used an attorney. 70% said they didn't need help. They didn't see it would make a difference. 17% didn't seek assistance because of the cost. 9% said they didn't seek because they didn't know who to ask, and 4% said it was just too stressful to seek assistance. And this came from a study about a year ago, August of 2014. So this is a newer study. The thing that really strikes me, and those of us who in GLSA who talk about the futures, the U.S. tied for a ranking of 65 out of 102 countries. They tied with 8 other countries for overall accessibility and affordability in the civil justice system in 2015, this year. The thing that's scary about that is that the 8 countries that we tied with are Botswana, Ecuador, Jamaica, Pakistan, South Africa, Tanzania, Turkey, and Uzbekistan. You can start to see, as I talk about statistics of where we are today, you can start to see why the Futures Commission was born and why we as lawyers need to look at this stuff and determine where we should go. Another statistic is that for every one person legal aid is able to serve, they have to turn another person away. And we've heard those statistics about the low income and the pro bono type of cases, but again, it's not just that access to justice for pro bono and low income. It's impacting others as well. Other quotes that I heard when I was talking to attorneys in these different futures conferences were a gal, an attorney who had been practicing for 8 years, who is dedicated to helping people who are in need, whether in her case it was for immigration, and she said, I wouldn't be able to afford my own services with the amount that we charge. And she did not charge. I heard her hourly rate, and it was basically around $190 to $200 an hour. So that gives you an idea of kind of where we are today. And so as you look towards the future, there are some predictions. And again, I will get to the commission, but I wanted to tell you some of the predictions that have come a little bit before the Futures Commission, but I thought they were very interesting because several of them have to do with the future of solo and small law firms. There are things out there that talk specifically, I should be specific, that it's experts, it's consultants, it's predictors, that solo and small potentially could have issues in the future with some of the things that we'll talk about and the changes they see in the other industries. I will say to you, and I have a slide on this later, is that I think that solo and small law firms can actually be very productive and have a lot of benefit from the different changes that we have. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's move on to the Futures Commission. And so we went from the past, we are in the current, and we'll talk about why again, what are they looking at? They're actually what I call the commission, that's the ABA, Commission on the Future of Legal Services. They've conducted a lot of surveys, a lot of meetings, and when I say a lot, I think one of the things I just saw was over 35 meetings that they either conducted or were a part of to try to get some information and determine some solutions for the future. So they really are, they really did do their homework, if you will. So the commission basically is looking towards several issues, and I'll go into those issues in just a moment. They really are coming from the courts are severely underfunded. Legal proceedings are more expensive, time-consuming, and complex. you've heard statistics where many who need advice or should seek advice can't afford it, don't know where to turn to, etc. And at the same time this is all happening, we talked briefly about all the technology that's coming into play and is changing other industries that's really having an impact on globalization and transforming some ways that legal services are accessed and delivered. And we hear about that on a daily basis in GLSA with different entities that are coming up and trying to provide legal services through technology. So the ABA established that commission, and basically the commission was to conduct a series of community-based meetings and they wanted to encourage bar leaders, judges, non-lawyers, innovators, lawyers obviously, etc., to really come forward with opinions and visions on the current issues and solutions for the future. They also had, like I said, many public meetings where they solicited comments. I do want to tell you that GLSA was a big part of those meetings and will continue to be, and I'll touch more on that later. They also sought information. They had internal working groups their specific committees that they assigned to each of these issues in order to gather information and make predictions. Well, it's using consultants to make predictions and then come up with some solutions or proposed solutions. So that's what their goal was. I'll even read to you a quote. The American Bar Association is well positioned to lead the effort to improve the delivery of and access to legal services in the United States. The ABA can inspire innovation. It can leverage technology, encourage new models for regulating legal services, and educating tomorrow's legal professionals, and foster the development of financially viable models for delivering legal services that meet the public's needs. According to William Hubbard, past president, we must develop a new model to meet the needs of the underserved. So they really focused on 6 issues. The first one being access solutions for the underserved. And I do want to say to you that even Tori and I have had a lot of discussion around access to justice and that phrase. Many of you know that most states have access to justice committees or commissions, and that truly, for the most part, is those trying to get more attorneys to do pro bono hours, those who are trying to help indigent and low-income individuals. So please note that when I'm saying access to justice, if I use that phrase, it isn't necessarily geared towards those things. It really, you need to think of it in a broader scope. And there's some talk to change that phrase of access to justice because it seems to pigeonhole in one particular area. And so really this is opened up to, think of those statistics that I talked to you about earlier. It really is to get to those individuals who can't go to the the State Bar Association's legal aid because they don't meet the requirements. It's really to those general consumers. It's those people who don't understand they should have an attorney or don't think it's worth it, those things, or those moderate income people. So income didn't necessarily come into play, and it was more geared towards opening it broadly. So access solutions for the underserved, that particular issue, I'm going to explain to you what that is, and then I'm also going to tell you that this is one of the main ones that GLSA and legal plans are focused on. So the issue basically is they want to assess developments and recommend innovations in facilitating access to legal services for underserved communities. By underserved communities, what their meaning is, so it's really broad, they want better service. They find that clients are not necessarily getting that client-centric focus from attorneys, that they're not getting the same, they have the same expectations that they would of any other provider that they use, a doctor, heck, even Amazon, whatever, but they might not be getting that type of focus through a lawyer. So it's also potential clients and how we can better serve people who currently either cannot afford an attorney, who decide to use alternative services to go it alone, so it does come into, pro se does come into play. So it's really, like I said, very, very wide. The other thing that they're looking at is facilitating access. How can we better facilitate access to civil and criminal legal services for those underserved communities? So again, what barriers are there? They also want to look at, and this is very pertinent to many of our members, facilitating delivery by small law practices. So how can small law practices really sustainably represent those who do not have access to legal services? So, do you as a small firm or a solo firm have the marketing ability to reach all of these percentage of people who are not getting your services? It's things of that nature. It's the diversity. You'll hear me talk about that, where there's a concern that we now have even more so a diverse citizen base, and there are many attorneys and legal services, and when I say attorneys, I mean it very broadly, that do not have the capability to handle, whether it be speaking a foreign language or being able to translate documents, or go even further where they feel comfortable with who they're going to as far as gender, ethnicity, things of that nature. So those are all things that they're looking at for this access solutions. Another thing that they've talked about with this access solutions, you can see, is a very broad issue. Another thing they've talked about is legal education and training. There are many talks and many meetings about lawyers not having what I would call business acumen. They're very technical in their law, and they're very good at what they do there. But the broader business acumen, the broader also technological, not only skills, but the resources and the money to be able to lay that technology over that many consumers are expecting. And we'll talk about that more too. So that's the first issue. That's a lot. But you can also see, as I talked about that issue hits on many key things that we in the legal plan industry and with GLSA do already. We have ability to talk about diversity and translate documents and have, call lines for translating and conversations, things of that nature. And I'll go more into that, but you can see then even better service. We survey everybody, things of that nature. We make sure that our clients not only are marketed to and understand the importance of going to a lawyer, but also then get the quality service that they demand. And so then we help lawyers, obviously, with that, because we help them not only by providing surveys to them, the results, but also education. So I'll pause really quickly because that was the big issue that we'll be talking about and that GLSA will continue to talk about. Does anybody have any questions right now? You will have to unmute if you're muted. Okay, I will continue on. So the other issues, please do not, again, I'm not skirting over them more quickly because I think they're less important. It's that GLSA has determined that we can do more for influencing and advocating for the futures with this particular issue and one other. But a couple other ones. Data. They're also looking at current and reliable data on the delivery of legal services. They want to start being able to really collect data and use that. So there's a committee that is specifically designed just to do that. Another one, the second one that I just referred to that GLSA is interested in is regulatory opportunities. So this particular committee on the commission is studying existing regulatory innovations such as alternative business structures, ABS. So for those of you who are not familiar with ABS, this is a phenomenon, if you will, that's happening outside of the U.S. that actually allows non-lawyers to be able to either partner with lawyers or, in some circumstances, depending on where you are, actually provide some legal.
Found out who that person stealing her identity.
Oh, can I ask a favor? Can whoever's talking, can you please put yourself on mute? Thank you. So where was I? So I was talking about alternative business solutions, and and that is either non-lawyers partnering or potentially non-lawyers providing legal services. So that's very interesting, and we'll talk a little bit more about that because that absolutely could impact and will impact if that comes into play in the United States. So, again, no JD law license required. The other thing they're looking at is in the Washington, for those of you who are in Washington, there is a limited licensed legal technician, the triple LTs, that was adopted in 2012, and in fact, they just had their first graduating class in 2015. I want to say, please don't quote me on this number, but I want to say it was 9 to 11 people that graduated in April of this year, and they already, for their this fall class, they already have over 100 people signed up, and that was a statistic I looked at about a month ago, so it might even be more than that now. But those are, in Washington at least, those are people who are not licensed as a lawyer, and in fact, they didn't even go to paralegal school. It is a 3-month-ish program that allows them, once they get that certification, to come out and in Washington be able to help people in divorces. So I know there are other states that are looking at that. Colorado in particular is one that I'm aware of. That is absolutely something that impacts all of us when we see more of these type of things come up. So you can see why regulatory might be something that GLSA and legal plans are very interested in, and the lawyers who provide legal plans or help with legal plans, because if they start changing not only this regulation but others, that absolutely will impact how not only lawyers do business, but potentially how legal plans do as well. And, of course, then there might be different competitors, or it might be such that if different companies non-lawyers can come in and partner with you, that might propel your business forward because now you have the ability to have a technology resource, a business acumen resource. And again, as I say that, please remember my original disclaimer in that I'm not advocating for or against anything. I'm just giving information. Okay, the next issue is dispute resolution. I wanted to make sure I got you everything. I did want to say one more thing about alternative business structures. It actually is happening over in the UK and in Australia. It's been around for many years. And in Europe, they are actually showing a cost savings of 30 to 40% for people and a higher client satisfaction. So something to think of as this moves forward. So the next one, dispute resolution, is exactly what you think of. There's a committee that will assess developments and recommend innovations in such things as court processes to make it more streamlined, having things such as kiosks and court information centers in the courts, ADR type of things, etc. So, and that's something that's been kind of moving and shaking for a while, but they've called that out is because there obviously is a problem in the court systems and getting people through and all the people who are not represented as well. Another one is blue sky, another issue that the commission, that is exactly what it kind of sounds like. It's anything and everything for innovation. It's those things that might not necessarily fit into other working groups, but absolutely could improve how legal services are delivered. And so they're looking at those type of innovations. Things that they've talked about, they are looking closely at WebMD and that IBM Watson, things of that nature that might be interesting in the United States. Okay, I think that that's the last one I need to talk to you about is preventative law. That's the last committee that the commission has. It's called Preventative Law, Transaction, and Other Law-Related Counseling. And basically, they're looking at things such as, contract drafting, wills, trademarks, incorporation of businesses, and really looking at developments and innovations and how to deliver those services that really don't involve courts, so could be streamlined maybe through technology and those outside resources. So those are the issues. Any question about the issues? 10 minutes? 10? Oh, Yeah, I'm getting the 10-minute. I just want to make sure. I was like, I wanted to make sure I got it down. Okay, so with that, why now? I gave you some statistics. I really want to also show you that it's happening. Change is happening outside of the United States. Canada just went through this type of scenario or exercise, if you will, that the commission is going on and have made changes or have suggested changes, and they might not all be implemented. In fact, I just heard from the past president of the Canadian Bar Association, and there are several things that haven't been implemented, but they're just streamlining the solutions, the proposed solutions. So that's happened. I've already talked to you about the UK. Australia, like I said, has done different things too. But I think the main thing you need to know is that why now? We just go back to that statistic where we're 65 out of 102 in affordability and accessibility for our people. That's a huge reason. We also have a change in our consumers and then what they're expecting and how they're expecting services. They're expecting it when they want it, how they want it. They want to be able to comment on it. They want to be able to rate on it. They want to be able to look at. No one, and I'll talk for myself, no one buys anything anymore without looking at the ratings and determining whether that's something they feel would be a good consumer purchase. So it's those type of things. It's technology. It is law schools. I talked briefly about law schools. There is a very high law school debt now of those graduates coming out, and there is a decrease in law school enrollment. Young lawyers who are coming out there's a high percentage of those who don't have jobs coming out of law school with this kind of debt, so they hang shingles and don't have the ability to have a mentorship or that education that others would have had when they came out of law school. Again, there's those alternative business solutions. There's non-lawyer companies coming in. So there's lots of stuff changing that really comes into play on why we need to worry about the future now. There was a good quote or an interesting quote that came out of the summit that was, "It's not the purpose of the law to provide lawyers with a living." That was interesting. Really what this commission is focused on is providing consumers with legal services and access to them, and whatever form that takes. So I talked about people not using attorneys. If you ever want more information on that, I have lots of information, lots of statistics, quite a bit of information on all of the areas that the commission is looking at, and so I'd be happy to share that with anybody if you would like it. Real quick, I just wanted to say one more statistic about law schools. So the number of U.S. licensed attorneys, basically, they've had a 52% increase in the amount of attorneys that are practicing. Now, with that, though, the law schools in the last couple of years have completely had declining enrollment, and so they're really concerned, too, not only that lawyers don't have jobs coming out, but they also don't have the right education coming out, so they don't have that customer service focus that clients and consumers are demanding. They don't have that technology base and that business base that consumers are demanding. And I want to switch quickly to those alternative business solutions again, because those companies are seeing a wide open market for them to come in. What I mean by that is there's an institute that estimates the legal market to be worth $400 billion. 274 to practicing lawyer market, 7.2 billion in research, 5.5 in e-discovery, 5 billion in in-house lawyers, 1.5 in legal temp staffing, etc. The rest is untapped potential with consumers and small businesses. So they see about a 45 billion plus business that they would like to be able to get into that is untapped. So that's why the commission is here. That's what they're looking at. I will say to you that technology absolutely has a huge part in that, because we even, Ann Casamana and I got to go to the summit for the Futures Commission back in May to hear the different legal leaders, if you will, and non-legal leaders. There were a lot of tech companies there. There were a lot of innovators there, a lot of consultants, and they're very interested in this market and looking at how they can marry, the consumer wants with technology and the services that not only are provided today, but that are not provided today that could really propel the use of legal services. And I use that very broadly, legal services. So I know I'm running out of time before we have question and answers. But I really want to say one more thing about this technology. There actually is a summit, or was a summit, on the use of technology to expand access to justice, and what they were looking at is how to create an integrated service delivery system. They were looking at creating in each state a unified legal portal by which there would be an automated triage process which directs people needing legal assistance to the appropriate form of assistance, guides self-represented people through the entire process. So again, it's all, if they want to go pro se or don't, or pieces of it, unbundling of legal services, they're able to do that through this technology. It also incorporated or looked at document assembly applications to support the creation of legal documents by service providers and litigants with that link to the portal, so it all connects everybody together. Again, remember, getting consumers what they want, when they want it, and how they want it. So very interesting. They talked about using mobile technologies to reach more people effectively, and really to develop expert systems to assist lawyers and other service providers. So it's not just the commission who's looking at this and trying to provide answers. There are other groups out there, whether they be ABA or not, who are looking at it. And we absolutely, I'll go back to, are looking at other countries and what they're doing and what they've proposed and how it has benefited or not them. So the last thing I will say is I've touched briefly on what GLSA has been doing. I want to tell you that I want to say special thanks to Tori and Ramon, the GLSA staff, because they've been very helpful in keeping an eye out for those things that are happening out there, not only with the ABA, but with different states, different judiciaries, things of that nature, because this is imperative that we as an industry not only stay abreast of what's going on, but we appropriately educate those entities that are making decisions or could potentially make decisions or consulting for decisions, and we also then advocate for legal plans, because again, legal plans are a current solution to the many of those issues that are being addressed. They are things that are in place right now that could help with the lawyers not having a job, could help with the marketing costs, getting access to people who normally wouldn't take access, the technology, et cetera. So it's been a collaborative effort. I also want to thank the Futures Committee, for the GLSA Futures Committee, for all the work they've done, because we attend many, many meetings. We live and breathe it many times, and one of the things that I want to leave with is that, I again go back to where U.S. ranked in countries for overall accessibility. So again, we were 65, just if you didn't remember that. The top 10 countries for overall accessibility and affordability in the civil justice system in 2015 were Norway, the Netherlands, Spain, Portugal, and Germany. That's included them. What they have all in common is that they provide legal plans, legal insurance to their citizens. And it makes a huge difference because they don't have the issues that we in the United States have. And in fact, 87% of people with legal insurance feels like it reduces their stress and they feel like they have somewhere to turn. So with that, I want to thank you guys for your efforts and for all that you do for legal plans and for GLSA. But I want to open it up. And not only do I want to open this up to your questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or any of us who are dealing with the futures would be happy to chime in. But I also want to ask, what's going on in your state? We are only as good as the information we can do, and we are small, but we are mighty, but we are small. And I would ask that, either with Tori or Ramon or myself, I would ask that you let us know. I want to hear now, but I also, in the future, if you hear of something going on, there might be a state meeting, there might be an article, there might be anything that has to do with the future and how this is going to impact the way we all do business, I'd really appreciate it if you'd send that on to us. So I'd ask that you all unmute your phones because I'd like to have a dialogue. I know we have a good amount of people on the phone because I heard your beeps and I heard you come in. So what's going on in your state? Anybody, or do you have any questions for me?
Sure. I was yes.
I'm sorry, can you go ahead and say that out loud?
Oh, Mary Smith. Okay. Transfer.
So,
okay, you want to transfer? Thank you.
All right, who else? Anybody else want to talk about what's going on in their state or what questions they have?
I had a question.
Please.
I was just wondering if you could expand a little bit on the Preventative Law Committee.
Yes, I can. Now, I do want to preface that I have not spent a lot of time watching that. I did read the report, and I'm going to say this wrong. Is it the annual meeting, Tori? Is it it's not a board. What's the ABA? Board of Governors. It is the Board of Governors.
Board of Governors.
Yes, thank you, Tori. So I did read about that. They are, like I said, and I'll get to your question in just a moment, they have gone a year in, so they have been working, all those committees have been working really diligently, and they did get funding for another year, so they'll have more come up and more solutions, et cetera, that they'll propose. The reason I'm telling you all that is because I didn't see a lot come out of preventative law, the committee. And I'll let Tori talk in just a moment, see if she has. I do know that one of the things they were looking at is technology systems that can handle the drafting of certain documents. And I do know what the limited people I talked to about this is it really was at that time geared towards, do you need to have a lawyer involved potentially for those things that are more, and this is my word, a transactional or something that could be done through a system, so basic contracts, things of that nature. But I will be honest with you, and that I have not seen a lot more come out of that. And Tori, I don't know if you have.
No, thank you, Nicole. I have not, but just if you have interest in what the commission is doing, I'd give you the email address, but the URL, but it's too long and complicated. But if you Google ABA Futures, the first thing that will pop up is the commission's website, and it's got everything from videos to transcripts of testimony that was taken at various meetings that they've had, plus kind of a grassroots resources if you're interested in planning something similar in your own state or your own local bar association.
Yep. And I really appreciate you mentioning that, Tori, because you should, all of you, the issues paper that they started out with gives great information on what they're looking at. And then the report to the Board of Governors back in, when was that, June, July? That is a great summary of what, overall of what the Commission has done this year. And then you can dig in a little bit more to each committee, but it's still not, those still aren't as easily accessible. So most of the information that I get is from talking to people and going to the different meetings. But great question. And who was that who asked the question, and what state are you in?
This is John Duda from Reagan Law, and I'm in Chicago, Illinois.
Fantastic. Very glad you asked that question. So sorry I couldn't give you a real good answer,
no
but
problem.
that might be an issue that you're real interested in watching. And
yep, I'll definitely check out the ABA Futures link as well.
Perfect. Thanks for your question.
Yeah, no problem.
And I do know that Illinois is big with the incubator firms. That's one of the things that they tout a lot with their innovation and their change to try to get access to attorneys. And incubator firms, for those of you who don't know, are, many times associated with law schools, sometimes not, and Tori could probably tell you more than I could, but it's basically giving opportunities for those coming out of law school to be able to get some experience under their belt for low salary, but also very low fees for the consumer. All right, anybody else? I'd love to hear from you. So you guys, are you surprised by all the stuff that I talked about in the futures, or is it something you're very well versed in and knowing about? Anybody?
Well, this is John. I'm not terribly knowledgeable, but I have attended the meetings of the commission, several of them anyway, and
good.
right into what you've talked about. It's for the ABA. It's a big step in that we've had so much pressure, particularly in the House of Delegates, relating to the unauthorized practice of law to keep lawyers from practicing, essentially. And now we're opening the doors, and I think that's a good and very significant change.
I think that's a great comment, John, and you're right. And I don't know if you were, I don't remember seeing you, but if you were, I apologize, at the meeting, the annual meeting in Chicago, and most specifically the Futures meeting that they had, where they had open mic where people could come and give testimony. And that was a heated topic on the unauthorized practice of law and what happens if you deregulate that, what happens to the legal profession, what happens to consumers, because, you know, absolutely lawyers are wanting to help other people and wanting to advocate for other people. So there is much emotion and much discussion around that particular piece.
Well, we have tools now that didn't exist before, and we've got to use them.
Yes.
And people are demanding it. So I'm delighted that the ABA has opened up this discussion and is, I think, actively advocating it. So it's a good thing, but we've got a ways to go, obviously.
Yep. But great points. Great points. Thanks, John. Anybody else? Okay. Well, Emily, I'll look at you and wrap it up and give your what's happening next month.
Yep, sounds great. Thank you so much, Nicolle, for being our first speaker to kick off our teleconference series. And thanks to everybody on the call for participating. We greatly appreciate it. Please mark your calendars for our next call. It will be Tuesday, October 27th at 1 p.m. Central Time. So we're going to continue on with these calls, hopefully the fourth Tuesday of every month.
Yep.
Yes, fourth Tuesday of every month. And this next one will be around Halloween, so it's technology tips and treats you can use today. And our keynote speaker will be our very own GLSA member, Stuart Price. So mark your calendars for the next call.
Fantastic.
All right, that wraps it up. Thank you, everybody, for participating today. We greatly appreciate it.
The problem is we had a couple beats that were...
The leader has disconnected. The conference will be terminated in 5 minutes. The leader has disconnected. The conference will now end.